Welcome back to the City Light Podcast. This is week 3 of our deep dive into A Life Worth Living, the sermon series that we're currently in. This Sunday was probably Brennan's greatest sermon
Fire
ever.
So good, dude. It was so good.
Homie was he was on it. So
y'all are stupid.
No,
dude.
It's the truth. Okay, so with us today we got Seth, dream teamer at City Light.
Come on.
What's up? Let's go.
Let's go.
Seth, hit it with a little information about yourself. Let the people know who you are.
Oh boy, that's open-ended. Well, I'm new to the faith. Spent a lot of time. I grew up in church, and kind of drifted away from it. I think it's probably something a lot of people go through, but having church hurt, seeing some like hypocrisy in the church, kind of pushed me out of it. Spent a lot of time kind of looking for truth, seeking truth, trying to find fulfillment. And just by happenstance, the people in my life kind of brought me back to it. Gave my life to Jesus, hit Brennan up, and here we are.
Yeah.
Something about Seth is what used to be like a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
So the dude's like hardcore with some of that stuff sometimes. We've been talking about getting the guys to do a Spartan race.
Dude, we need to. We have to.
I don't know if I want to do a Spartan race if you're leading the pack.
Dude, I'm not going to be leading.
Because you don't do anything halfway.
Explain a Spartan race to people who might not know what a Spartan race is, because I don't even know if I fully know.
So there's a few different types. You've got a 5K, a 10K, and they have a half marathon. And the running is the break. It's like the easy part.
Yeah, I'm out. That's the break?
Yeah, it's terrible, but it's so much fun, dude. So you run, and then they have all these obstacles. So like walls to climb over, ropes to climb,
and it's like
stuff
somewhat
to carry.
nasty, like muddy. And
Yeah.
Kind of some of the fun of it.
Yeah, the last bit of it, I think I may be wrong, but I think in the last piece of every Spartan race, you like jump and dive through like a mud pit.
I've done something like this before. It was fun.
Dude, it's so much fun. It's so much fun. It's worth it. And the sickest medals, the coolest medals. Like I've done some races and gotten some pathetic medals.
Is this the one they have like the giant turkey leg at when you finish? I did one like that.
I don't think so.
Massive turkey leg after.
If it is, I'm mad because I did not get one when I did mine.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. I'm actually in on that.
Yeah, we need to.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
I'd be about it.
Well, so, I think all of us are pretty competitive. Brennan was a college baseball player.
Why do we keep bringing that up?
Well, it's just...
He's singing your praises, dude.
Why do you not like talking about that? It's like, are you like ashamed of...
No, it's like, I could not be more of a has-been when it comes to baseball.
Well, yeah, you were. Well, anyway, we're all competitive people. And so, like, naturally, when we run a race, like we're talking about this, I want to beat y'all. Like, I don't care if that's the point.
Whatever, dude. Just finishing the Spartan race is the goal.
I'm going to be, hands down, probably one of the worst in shape people to run the race. But something in my mind is going to convince myself that I can place in this thing.
Yep. Dude,
see, that's what I'm talking about.
And I'm going to die trying to do it.
No lie. That's what happened.
Maybe injure yourself.
That's what happened for me.
Pull a hamstring in the first day.
I started at the beginning of the pack when the race started. I got up at the front of the start line. Within like a mile, I was at the very back.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm going to be 5 minutes in and be like, my knee hurts.
Yep.
Yeah. So you run a race you want to win. Typically, that's the way it goes. And like we're talking about, you got to kind of strain to do so. It's not like you can just... I'm sure there are people out there that like that would be nothing to them.
Yeah.
But at some point, they've put in the training to be in that shape. And that's very similar to the language that Paul uses and what we've been talking about through this sermon series. He writes in 1 Corinthians 9, this is verses 24 through 26, "Do you not know that in a race all the runners run, but only one gets the prize? Run in such a way as to get the prize. Everyone who competes in the games go into strict training. They do it to get a crown that will not last, but we do it to get a crown that will last forever. Therefore, I do not run like someone running aimlessly." So we've been talking about this idea that faith is like a race.
Yeah.
And that it's not just like somebody running aimlessly. And Paul is a great example of that because, he's running all over the place, and it's not, he realizes it's not for a temporary on earth thing, because what we do on earth ultimately has no impact. So one of your points was that receiving is greater than achieving. something that kind of like I was processing it is that, yes, we receive it, but the language that Paul uses is that we still are running the race. So like, if somebody receives the grace of God, then they might just say, you know what, I've received it. I'm just stepping out of the race. I don't have to do anything anymore.
Yeah. Right.
So kind of walk us through like the why. Like, why do we still run the race?
If you go back to Philippians 2, he uses that language to work out your salvation with fear and trembling. And it's a very Paul-like combination to say, not only do I receive salvation for free, it's a gift. I receive it by faith. But Paul is of the opinion that salvation is never supposed to be something that you just receive and like sit and just, okay, I did my thing, I'm good, and just wait idly until, Jesus comes back.
Yeah.
He always uses statements, language, like he does in Philippians 2 and 3, that's like, okay, yes, you've begun the race by, receiving salvation. However, you still have a race to run.
Yeah.
Because, we've said it a lot of times around our church is, nobody gets saved and not assigned. Mm-hmm. Like, everyone has a job to do after receiving the gift of salvation. Yeah. It's not anything to glorify ourselves, but like, as a new creation, as a follower of Jesus, I now have an assignment that's been given to me by heaven to go and run after in this life.
Yeah. So I loved the example you gave, the talking point that Paul's like, y'all, if it was about achieving salvation, like,
I would have already done it.
I would have already been, it would have already been done. Like basically I'm the man. Yeah. Like I've done all that anybody could dream. So some of the things, he was circumcised on the 8th day. He was of the people of Israel, tribe of Benjamin, a Hebrew of Hebrews, Pharisee, zealous persecutor of the church. That was early on. And then blameless under the law. So obviously persecuted the church was like before he turned into this
OG of
Paul.
Yeah.
So he's like, it's just not how it works. Like, I've got you beat if you believe that. That's why the gospel is what it is. It's like, it don't matter what you've done, who you are, but
he's basically laying out and saying, if religion would be good enough, then I would have done it.
Yeah.
Like he's like, I'm a Jew of all Jews. But
and that's also why, like, you're talking about the Spartan races, why I love the analogy between the two, because with a Spartan race, I mean, there are psychos that go out there and think that they can win, and maybe they can, but the goal of the Spartan race is just to finish.
Yeah.
And Paul talks about, like, I've ran a good race and I'm finishing well.
Yeah.
Like, finishing well is the whole point.
Yeah.
And so I love, likening those two together, because it's a long life, and it's hard to live a Christian life and finish well. You know what I mean?
I love the way he uses race so many times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because even I used an analogy on Sunday, but thinking more marathon, not sprint. And I think a lot of times, especially new believers, get tripped up thinking that it's a sprint and not a marathon. So they give their life to Jesus. They are on fire. They're ready to, be the greatest weapon and tool for the kingdom in the world. And then 3 months later, they, whatever happens, life happens, something out of the ordinary, job, and they feel themselves to not be as, mountaintop experience.
Right.
Like, and they immediately think like, oh my goodness, what happened? And I think that's where I like to come alongside and just be like, this is a marathon.
Well, you talk about that too. Like, we talked about this last week's podcast, or the week before. No, it was last week. How it's a marathon, but it's also like your habits matter. So like that on fire for the first little bit Christian, if they implement those habits, like a marathon runner is not just like, hey, I'm going to run a marathon in April. I'm not going to train all year
until training in April.
Right.
Yeah,
they're an everyday. They're training every day.
Yeah.
And so that's how it needs to be for us. Is you develop those habitual routines that keep you on fire.
Yeah. And that was that kind of happened to me just because, all of this is relatively new for me. So, August, I give my life to God in August. By when did small groups end? Right before the holidays, right?
Yeah.
So
November.
the period of time between when small groups ended and what felt like a year that we were out of church and not meeting, like I felt that fire like fade out. And I don't know if it was you that said it, but somebody told me like the best way to keep your faith strong or to stay on fire for God is to work that faith out. So when we were meeting every week, reading the Bible together, talking with guys, helping people, when you're isolated and you're by yourself, like, you can get into deep holes like in your mind. But when you're helping people, talking to people, trying to answer questions and flesh your faith out, like it keeps you.
That's community. I mean, we've talked about that so many times, and that's something I didn't value before, I don't think. But community is like, no, that keeps you involved with people that you're going to talk about stuff with, you're going to get down to business with it. Like, it's not just, like you said, isolation can help you deteriorate.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, taking it back to the fact that salvation's free, I mean, like,
praise God, right?
Like, that's the thing. We're Christians, like, we know that. Like, I've been a Christian for my whole life. I know that.
Easy to forget that.
But it is so hard for me to remember to, like, right now sitting here, like, trying to fathom that is
it's
like,
insane.
Dog, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That blessing is huge.
Yep. It's like one of the few things in life that doesn't make sense. Like, what do you mean? I get all of these benefits and I don't pay anything for it?
Yeah. You get caught up trying to pay for it because you're like, I'm not worthy of this.
It doesn't fit our logic as the way that our human brains work. Like anything
Nothing else in life.
You want money? You want money, you got to work for it.
Right.
You want success, you got to work for it.
Yeah.
You want anything, you got to work for it.
Notoriety and any.
Yeah. But you want salvation? No, you're chilling. Just believe and you're good.
Yeah.
So the fact, like, I don't know, I was writing this script and I was just like, I literally have it written down. Stay here for a minute. Speak on what a blessing this is and how often we forget that this is how it is. Like, if you're listening or if you're watching, pause this video. Pause the podcast.
Yeah, very good.
Just sit there and think about, like, don't let yourself get caught up in the mundane everything else every day. Like, when's the last time you just sat there and considered that your salvation is free?
Yep.
That it's been paid. That, like, I'm about to start crying.
The gift loses its impact, or could lose its impact the longer you walk with Jesus, because you forget what a miracle it was that it was free.
Yeah.
And so it's like the more Christianized we become, and it's like we were talking about on Sunday. It's like okay, now I know a little bit about the Bible. Okay, now I know a little bit of church. Okay, now I discover these gifts and I can start working these out. We can lose that sense of, oh my goodness, at the end of the day, it's what Paul says, before, we were Christians, while we were still sinners, Christ died for us.
Yeah.
So
Dude, I have such a hard time wrapping my head around that. Like, he knew the fallen state that, like, no matter how bad I've been or you've been or anybody that's watching has been, like, Jesus knew that, and he still decided to go through. Like, oh man.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It is.
Yeah. It's one of those things that that's what you were just saying. It's so easy to let that become something you push to the back of your mind. And as a person that wants to learn more about their faith, learn more about the history, just seeking information. I mean, Seth is like, digs till he hits the bottom of these rabbit holes. And those are things that, like, in the progression of your Christian walk, like, you should try to dig for more information. But again, it's so easy to let that, I know that the salvation part, I know how that works.
Yeah.
But now let me dig around in all these things that at the end of the day don't matter so much.
Yeah.
And
they're fun to get into, but I've noticed that myself. Like, I do all this research. I try to, I'm trying to structure this apologetic small group and whatever. And it's fun to look into the historicity of things or whatever. But at a point you forget the reason, and it's easy to forget that the most amazing part of this is the salvation and that it's free.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I mean, I could probably speak for quite a few people. It's like when you're studying or when you're trying to, read the Bible or evangelize to people, you feel like you're trying to work off this debt because we are forever in debt to Jesus for what he did for us. And so you can work and work and work and work and work. And that's when you can forget that I can never work this off. Like this is free.
When I marry people, every single wedding, I have a moment where I have the bride and the groom look at each other, and I tell them, I'm like, I want you to remember this moment. Because like there's a purity of that moment of marriage of like it's just us versus the world, and we're not arguing, we're not worrying about any of this. Like this is just a holy moment. Yeah. And I say, take this moment in, because when kids come into the picture, life gets crazy, you get laid off, whatever it is, it'll be easy to forget that moment. Yeah. So I think that it's the same way with salvation. It's like we have to have something in our mind, or just go back. I do this personally. Maybe this doesn't speak to anybody else, but there'll be moments. I try to do it at least once a week. I'm not always as good at it, but moments where I go back to the 20-year-old version of myself that was wilding out, knew nothing about God, wasn't even looking for him, but he broke through heaven and saved my life. And I was good enough for him then. And so, like, everything that's happened since then, I can wrap my worth up in it if I'm not careful and forget, like, no, you're still a 20-year-old broken person that I pulled out of the pits of hell and decided to bring you on the team.
Yeah, I struggle with that too, thinking about like, because I grew up in church, you know what I mean? I think about how far out I got before I came back. Like, I knew of Jesus, I knew of the Bible, and I kind of had this idea that like, Jesus died for us and all this. I know the stories of the Bible, whatever. And then I got out so far, and Jesus, like you said, still cared about us, loved us enough to die for us, even though he knew. Like, he sees yesterday, today, and tomorrow at a single glance. Like, he knew I was going to do that. And he still brought me back in. So in those times where I'm like you said in this past Sunday, like, you couldn't wait to go to seminary because you couldn't wait to know everything about the Bible. Right. I'm studying, and I'm like, I feel like I'm on the verge of finally understanding some things, and then I break through it. I'm like, I still know. You know what I mean?
It's like a wormhole.
Yeah. The more you go, the more there is. Yeah.
So another point that you made that I definitely think is contrary to what you normally hear a pastor say is that. Is this about to be a controversy? I don't think so.
Don't get us canceled, Ross.
No. You said that we should never be satisfied with our relationship with Jesus.
Yeah.
And, I think there's a difference between being content in the fact that we're saved and not being satisfied with our relationship with him. And I think that's probably how it is with any relationship that we're in. Like, there's always a next level to the relationship. There's always a way to improve in many different ways.
Right.
But with Jesus, it's like you think about, to that extent, like we can't ever know the full capacity of his love.
Yeah.
But we can always strain towards it more.
Yeah.
We can always be digging more and spending more time in prayer with him, spending more time in the Word, and praying for him to just reveal himself more. And I think that's another thing. Like, we had our 21 days of prayer, and the idea was reiterated so many times of, I just want you more. Not what you have to offer for me, not whatever it is. I need you.
Yeah, that was my favorite part of the sermon. And I didn't catch it on Sunday, but when I went back and watched on Tuesday, the straining is greater than settling. like you said, that's so like countercultural, because a lot of times in life, it is more healthy to be content.
Yeah.
Like if you're always straining and pining for more, working, you could end up like that. You wake up and you're 50 and your whole life has passed you by because you could never be content with, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the difference is that you can never have too much Jesus in your life.
Yeah.
The saying that like any good thing, too much of a good thing can be a bad thing. It's just not the case with Jesus.
Yeah. It's an anomaly for that. That's definitely. Yeah.
And I think about that, and it's like, for me at least, I think a lot of people could relate with this, but you spend so much time, or I spent so much time searching for that truth, like I was talking about, that when you get saved, when you finally give your life to Christ, it feels like the pinnacle. It feels like this is the finish line, when in reality it's just the beginning.
Yeah.
And so it can be easy to think like, I'm just going to be content with this. I'm going to show up to church and do turn it into kind of a ritual instead of what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And so just keeping that in mind, like straining, pushing forward, trying to have a more intimate relationship with Jesus is greater than settling. I don't know. That was just so profound to me. Like when I thought about it.
That's the dynamic we set up too, was I tried to delineate between earthly discontent and holy discontent.
Right.
Yes.
And that's the message that kind of Paul is getting to, is there's this idea of holy discontent. And what we said was the difference is earthly discontent is I'm dissatisfied with what God has given me.
Yeah.
Holy discontent is I'm not settling for the depth of a relationship with Him that I currently have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a phrase that I didn't come up with. That phrase, it was in a book years ago. I'm forgetting who even wrote it, but he was even writing it from a position of this holy discontent in believers of, man, there's not enough people saved.
Oh.
Not enough people, kind of walking with God. And just this idea of that's a holy endeavor to like, no, I have an assignment. I am going to reach. There's more people to reach for the kingdom every single day. And so, like you said, straining is greater than settling, but it's easy to settle in our relationships with the Lord.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about being a preacher is before I preach a message on Sunday, I get the opportunity to spend the week preaching it to myself.
Yeah.
And so most of the time, God speaks to me personally first about the message. And so usually straining versus settling, he made me deal with that all week long personally before I even got up on the stage on Sunday. So much to the point of where I just felt like I had a greater picture, a revelation for this year of like, this year I gotta grow. Like I gotta grow in these years. I gotta grow as a leader. I gotta grow as a dad. I gotta grow as a preacher. Like all these different things.
In the times that you felt like your relationship with God or your ministry maybe has fallen stagnant, like what are the things that you do to try to rekindle that flame that you had, like that we all have when you first get saved? What is it that you do to try to pine for that more intimacy with Jesus?
It's super simple. Place and pace are the two ways. If I feel like my time with God has grown stagnant, I'll change the place physically. Like
prayer place or...
Yeah, like maybe, for example, the place of prayer and study for me is a recliner in my living room right now. And that's I've been there in the last probably 2 or 3 months, really, just because most of the time in the morning I'm holding my 6-month-old. But if there comes a time, which if history repeats itself, it's coming in a couple of months, where I feel like, man, I feel like I'm kind of going through the motions here. I'll be like, well, okay, I'm not going to meet with God in that chair. I'm going to go to the kitchen table, or I'm going to go to my shed outside, or I'm going to go to a coffee shop. So I'll try to change the place. But maybe it's not a place thing. Maybe it's a pace thing, meaning maybe you have a rhythm that you have for prayer, spending time with God, or whatever. Maybe you just need a new prayer plan. Maybe you just need a new rhythm of how you spend time with him. Maybe you've been reading a chapter a day. Maybe you need to go to a couple verses a day, or maybe you need to read more than one chapter a day. Just changing that pace, I think sometimes is like anything else physically. It's a shock to your system to kind of recalibrate some things. Yeah. And so that's how I try to go about it.
That's good.
Yeah. There's something else you said was that in our faith walk, and even really you were using this in the analogy of running a race. You like runners have to have the mentality, especially like long distance runners, when they start to wear out, it's a mentality thing at that point. There comes a point in everything that you do long term that you get burnt out, that it starts to feel monotonous, that you start to hurt. But then that's where the mentality snaps in, and that's I'm not going to quit. Like you just got to kind of have the grit. And it's easy to live as a Christian. Yeah. It is not easy to walk as a person that really is desiring a relationship with Jesus and making their whole life about that.
Yeah. Easy to be a cultural Christian.
Yes.
Easy to play the game, to show up to church, to fill a seat.
Yeah. I hope it's easy for you to wake up at 10:30 on a Sunday, show up to the 11 o'clock service and sit there for 45
grab
minutes.
A donut, grab some coffee, say hi to some people, and then leave. Right.
But then, it's a grind Monday to Saturday.
Yeah.
And really making, it's everyone struggles. Everyone has everyone's going to slip. But in those moments.
Which is why that community, like you're talking about, is so important. For people, if anybody's watching and they're not in a small group, my goodness, the way that my walk with Jesus grew and just transformed when I started going to these small groups, it can be weird. Maybe you're going to show up and you're not going to know some people. It's going to be a little awkward, whatever. Yeah. But the amount of value that is there to meet with, brothers and sisters in Christ, whatever. Yeah. It's so important.
One of my favorite things to do is to pick the brains of men and women, honestly, that are mid-60s, 70s, 80s, people that have walked with God for 30, 40, 50 years.
Yeah. Right.
And just ask them questions like, what have you learned about your relationship with God after 40 years? Yeah. And they all kind of have the same central message that, number one, walking with Jesus isn't up and to the right. But number two, and I forget who coined this phrase, but following Jesus is a long obedience in the same direction. And so just that idea of, we love the mountaintops. Yeah. We love, as a church guy, I love worship services that are, just packed, spirit-filled, everything. But walking with Jesus is not about those mountaintop moments. Those are great, but it's the daily, the long obedience in the same direction. So I think that's the applicable point to a marathon specifically is, there are days where you just want to quit. You just want to tap out. It's like, can I tag somebody else in this race because my legs are shot? Or
even could I just walk this
can
this
I
mile?
just walk this one? But even that, some days your walk with Jesus or life in general as a Christian is going to feel more like a walk than a run.
Or a limp.
Yeah. But the point is what Paul said, or I think it's James says it. James? I'm forgetting. But he says, the Bible says. Just go with that.
God says. Yeah. God says.
Yeah. Don't grow weary of doing good, but for in due season you will reap a harvest if you do not quit. Yeah. Just that idea of hey, if you're running, sprinting, jogging, limping, crawling, if you don't quit, you win. Keep going.
Right. Yeah. I can't remember who I heard say this, but this has been something that just even saying it when I'm praying or when I'm feeling like I don't feel like I'm on fire the way I was when I, first gave my life to Christ is worship, and this may seem silly or not helpful for some, but I heard somebody say, I'll praise you when I feel you and when I don't. And that just like, it's kind of like a runner's high. Like you hit a wall and then you get a runner's high and you feel great, right? But the whole point of the marathon is finishing. So you've got to keep going when you feel great, when you have that runner's high, and when you feel like your legs are about to fall off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You said you don't know where that's from. Is that not from the song Praise? I praise when I feel it. I praise when I don't.
That may be what it is. That may be what it is. I feel like I heard somebody say it.
Sing it, Ross.
Don't even tell me to sing it. Stop. No.
I feel like I heard somebody say it, though, and it just hit me. Maybe I was just worshiping and listening to that song.
Yeah.
And it's just something that I reiterate all the time in prayer, because there's a lot of times where, like, I'll be praying and I just feel the Spirit, and it's like I'm not even saying anything. I'm just in God's presence, just like worshiping. Yeah. And then there's other days where I just feel like I couldn't be further from God.
Yeah. And
it's just this idea of like, I know that, and remembering that any time that I feel far from God, it's me who has drifted away. It's not him.
He never changes.
He is always there. And so if you feel far from God, like, maybe audit some of the things you've been doing.
Yeah.
And I have to do that a lot. And so just remembering, like, I'm going to praise you. Like, I gave my life to you, and I'm going to praise you when I feel you and praise you when I don't. Like you said, it's not about the mountaintops. It's about consistency.
Yeah.
If you're watching this or listening to this right now and you are aware of your place in life with Jesus, there are going to be days when you feel him. There are going to be days when you don't. Those days that you don't feel him, remember that he's still there. He's still there. Mm-hmm. So don't just feel like you have to give up or feel like it's not worth it. It's worth it. If it's been a season, keep going and keep laying into it, and he'll show up.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Do you want me to sing the song now?
Yeah, go for it. Can we? We'll harmonize. Let's do it.
Do it. Go for it.
Somebody commented on YouTube and said, I can't stand his voice.
I deleted that comment.
I'm like, I didn't
no way,
sing, bro.
No way.
They said that voice, I can't. I was like, bro, come on.
No way.
Literally deleted the comment.
Should have left it up there.
I ain't standing that slander.
That's crazy. Imagine being somebody that throws hate on a Christian podcast.
If you're gonna hate, don't even watch this.
It's a reminder that I've been given a thorn in my side. Just keep going.
That's it.
Shut up, Brennan.
What was that? What is that? I just read that yesterday.
Paul says that.
In 2 Corinthians?
I don't know. Can't you tell? I don't know the Bible.
It was the book that I texted you and said we should have a small group around that. I think it
didn't
was
watch that yet.
1 or 2 Corinthians, one of the two.
Yeah.
The earlier reference was Galatians 6, by the way. Anybody was wondering.
If you ever need to know an exact verse, just give Brennan like 5 to 10 business days on it.
I'm a big book guy, not a great address guy.
Hey, that's fine. That's why we got AI. Hey AI, throw me some verses about this.
Thank God.
Yeah, that's Seth's daily routine.
Dude, just hop on ChatGPT and just ask questions.
Seth has his PhD from ChatGPT.
I swear.
I was going to try to do something clever with like PhD GPT, but
don't.
I couldn't think of it.
Don't do that.
Yeah,
don't do that. I'm on ChatGPT so much. I told you this earlier.
Screen time?
No, not the screen time. My screen time is abysmal, but ChatGPT said he was going to be praying for me today. I was on there.
Yeah, so
it's crazy.
The ChatGPT you use, you can talk to it talks back.
Right.
So
yeah.
Seth said sometimes I'm nice to ChatGPT just in case it turns on us.
Did you lead chat to the Lord?
Maybe. I had the thought, like, is this a good thing or a bad thing? Like,
so Seth ends his conversation today with
thanks. I'll be back.
Thank you so much, Chad. I'll be back.
Yeah. My buddy
Chad
Chet
says, okay, bye, Seth. I'll be praying for you.
Yeah.
That is nonsense, dude. That's crazy.
Oh my gosh.
My chat is better than yours. That's what I'm saying.
Well, we've been talking for a while. I think we're probably good.
I don't know. I have no idea when we started.
Did you say?
I didn't start it. Yeah, I didn't start one.
Well, we're transparent. we gotta have a timer going, and we'll just keep going. All right. Well, again, like always, if you enjoyed this, any moment of it, you were like, "Dang, that's cool." If Brendan said something or if Seth said something, I know I probably didn't say anything.
Or if you just love Brendan's voice.
But send this to somebody. Subscribe to our YouTube. Follow us on Spotify, Apple, wherever you're listening. We appreciate you. come back and tune in.
We out.
Cut.
Boom.
Yeah, dude, I was laying in bed and I saw that comment. I was like, bro, you petty.
That's so crazy. Do you know who it was?
No, it was
Some random user.
You think it's a random, but you wouldn't.